This could be some simulation.
It could. You entertain that?
Well, the argument for the simulation, I think, is quite strong. Because if you assume any improvement at all over time, any improvement, 1%, 0.1%, just extend the time frame, make it 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. What would civilization, if you count it, if you're very generous, civilization is maybe 7 or 8,000 years old, if you count it from the first writing. This is nothing. This is nothing. So if you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will be indistinguishable from reality. Or civilization will end. One of those two things will occur.
Our great-grandkids, Joe, sitting at the same table, 100 years from now going, man, imagine if we could have seen a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Well, we still have them here in California. It's in our state flag.
It's in our flag, the golden grizzly.
Yeah, but there's not a single one left.
No,
they
not.
killed all those fuckers.
Yeah, possibly, I don't want to get down a weird rabbit hole here, possibly in Mexico. The silver grizzly bear in the high Mexican Sierras.
What?
Ongoing reports of grizzlies. So the same species that would have been here, right, that hung out in the Sierras, traveling all the way down into the Sierra Madres of Mexico, and then in these, what they call sky islands, if you're familiar with that term. I'll explain in a second. These islands of isolated habitat up in the sky where they get more rainfall and everything else. There's big tracts of private land down there in Mexico where a couple of these farmers are like, something's killing my cattle and it's not a mountain lion. And it could potentially be like half a dozen Mexican grizzly bears.
We gotta make life multiplanetary before it's too late.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, why not? It's be fun and exciting. And even if you don't go, you can just watch it on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still cool. I mean, it's not like, attendance is mandatory here, and it'll be dangerous and people might die.
Well, for sure they're going to die. Right?
Yeah. Like sometimes, maybe be surprised. Some people think that the idea is like, oh, Mars is going to be an escape hatch, some luxury resort for rich people. I'm like, no, it's like high probability of death relative to Earth. It's a long journey. Food's probably not great. A lot of hard work.
No sunlight.
Yeah, it sounds like Shackleton's ad for the Antarctic, where it's it's dangerous. It's a long journey. The food's bad. You might not make it back, but if you do, it'll be glorious.
Let's explain to people that don't know what we're talking about. Operation Paperclip was when, after World War II, the United States gathered up a ton of scientists from Nazi Germany, brought them over to America, and even Wernher von Braun. They had Wernher von Braun run NASA. He was a Nazi, like 100% Nazi.
Good friends with Hitler type Nazi.
Yes, he ran a Berlin rocket factory where they hung the 5 slowest Jews. They would hang them out front so everybody would know, like, this is what happens when you work slow. We'll hang you. I mean, the Simon Wiesenthal Center said that if Wernher von Braun was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity.
Yes, they would.
And that was the head of NASA. That was the guy who got us to the moon. That was the big cheese guy. Hard times create hard men. Hard men create soft times. Soft times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. We are now around soft men in hard times. We're in the time of toxic masculinity, right? Where you could be toxically male. And then if you're suppressing masculinity, you're going to bring on hard times. Masculinity doesn't mean you're mean. It doesn't mean you're angry. It means strength. It means discipline. It means the ability, like you need a military. And if you don't think you need a military, you need to go and pay attention to the rest of the world, because there's militaries all over the world that are doing horrific things. If you don't have a military in this country that can combat that and at least act as a deterrent to them doing things, you're going to get taken over. The majority of people in this country have a job where you have a boss. The bosses are a very small minority. The majority of people work for that boss. If you work for a corporation, they have very strict rules that they'd like you to follow. There's behavior rules, there's language rules, there's dress rules, there's, rules about the time you're supposed to be there and the amount of work you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to take home and what's required of you. People are conditioned to have someone tell them what they can and can't do. And then they get off on Friday and they can't wait to get drunk. And that's part of why they want to get drunk, is they want to escape. They want to escape this grind of a world. What do you think consciousness is? Do you think consciousness is clearly just a factor of brain tissue and energy? Or do you think it's possible that what our brain is something that tunes into consciousness?
Yeah. Well, I've spent some time thinking about this question. I think it's perhaps the deepest question that faces science or even humanity at some level. And my own personal perspective is that consciousness is nothing more than the choreographed motion of particles in various quantum states inside a gloppy gray structure that sits inside this thing that we call a head. Do I have any proof for that? No. Does anybody have any proof for what consciousness is? Not at all at this moment.
Ash, tell everybody what you've done.
So I've recently, only 5 months ago now, 5.5 months, came back from achieving my third world first record in walking the entire length of the Yangtze River in China. So it's the third longest river in the world, the longest to run through a single nation. So it's 4,000 miles. It took 352 days. And it's from the Tibetan Plateau in the west of China. So you're talking 5,100 meters above sea level, which is equivalent to Everest Base Camp. And 4,000 miles later, 352 days, you end up near Shanghai, where it pours out into the East China Sea.
You know what I thought when I heard that you did this? I thought this kind of validates a lot of the ideas that people have always had about human beings migrating from Africa and through Siberia and through the Bering Strait. If you can do that, what you did is not dissimilar